Good afternoon, everyone, and today we are looking at our final home run to the end of this biology course, and we're looking at technologies and disorders. So what we're going to be looking at in this section is looking at hearing loss, we're looking at visual disorders, loss of kidney function, and what technologies there are that can assist people with these disorders. So what we're going to look at today is our hearing. So first up is how our ear actually works. Now you will have already watched a little bit of the Ed Rollo, which was really quite brief. We're going to go into it in a little bit more detail today. So when we're hearing, we are picking up sound waves from a voice, and in biology and in our junior school, we've looked at sound waves before, and you can see that they're passed through a vibration. So when you're speaking, if you feel your vocal cords, you really can feel that vibration, and it's that vibration that passes through the air to our ears. So the pinna, the outside of our ear, is what actually captures and directs the sound into our ear. So some people that have lost the outside of their ear due to burns or cancers or whatever else, sometimes get an artificial pinna made, or sometimes they might have to turn their ear to the sound so that they actually are able to pick up that sound, because that pinna is not just decorative but actually plays an important role. So when the sound waves are directed into the outer ear canal by that pinna, the vibrations start to pass through, and so those vibrations go through in the same frequency that they were in the air, and it hits the eardrum, and those vibrations are then passed on to those tiny bones that we have in our middle ear on the other side of our eardrum. Now you will have probably been familiar with them having been called the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup, and in this picture here they are the same thing. In this case though, they're called the malleus, the incus, and the stapes, and they're mentioned in your work booklets as well. So that vibration comes through from the air, caught by the pinna, directed into our ear canal, and vibrates against the eardrum. Those vibrations are transferred to those bones there in that middle ear. What happens is then the bones amplify, so really ramp up that vibration and transfer that sound energy then to the oval window, and in our picture it's not there, but it is in your booklet, kind of down and around this way here, and then the vibrations pass from there up into our cochlea. So when we're talking about our cochlea, we're in our inner ear now, and so the cochlea is that snail-shaped organ there in our middle ear. And so what's happening then is the vibrations go into our cochlea. Now you'll notice that we do have the semicircular canals, these canals just here, and they're fluid filled, and so that vibration transfers through that fluid filled those fluid-filled canals, and sometimes when you spin yourself around and around in circles, sometimes you get a bit dizzy because of that fluid swishing around in there, and you can see then how our hearing really does relate a lot to balance. So eventually those vibrations then hit our cochlea there, and they've got lots of receptors called hair cells in there, and those hair cells move and respond to the sound. And then it converts that kinetic energy in the form of vibrations into an electrical signal that can then go via the auditory nerve to our brain for interpretation. So sometimes it's these hair cells that can get damaged with excessive exposure to noise, and that's something that we're certainly concerned about with young people and the use of headphones or going to lots of loud concerts, particularly where they're really up close next to those booming speakers, and you can often hear the repeated booming still long after the night has continued, and really that's hearing damage. So in your booklets we are looking at it mentions our organ of Corti, and your picture in your booklet is a little bit different, and I think a little bit hard to see. So if you look here, you can see this picture here shows us the the pathway that our sound goes through. So we're getting our impulses here coming from our external ear, hitting our eardrum. That's passing on into these 3 bones here. It goes through our oval window and it heads into our cochlea, which is our snail-shaped organ. And so it comes in through here, and here is our organ of Corti in here. Now, this, it mentions in your notes again, the basilar membrane just through here, and it's talking there about those hair cells where that vibration and movement carries through there. So we're obviously looking at hearing loss, and as you're all aware, it can occur for a variety of different reasons, and it depends really on what part of the ear has been damaged or hasn't been formed properly. So we've got 2 types of hearing loss: conductive hearing loss and sensory neural hearing loss. And so we're going to look into those just a little bit more. So when we're looking at our conductive hearing loss, it's often due to a problem that's been due to the mechanical conduction of the vibration. So the vibrations are struggling to get through to the the inner ear to be sent to the auditory nerve and up to the brain for interpretation. It's struggling to get through either through the outer ear or through the middle ear to get to the internal workings of the ear. So that can be due to a number of reasons, and it might just be that there is a malformation of those structures. Any of you that have had a perforated eardrum might find then that you're having trouble hearing. It's not necessarily permanent, but at that time, that perforated eardrum again is preventing that transmission of those vibrations through to your middle ear and therefore then to your inner ear. Again, kids that have had infections in the inner or the outer ear, again, you'll notice that that could be due to a buildup of fluid in the ear. Some kids may have had grommets to open that eustachian tube because they may have had a lot of recurrent ear infections. Again, fluid staying in that eustachian tube because it's only narrow and doesn't drain. And so, again, a lot of children that have had that, it's been picked up because kids are having trouble hearing. And it can sometimes be damage to the ossicles due to trauma by loud noises. So some people have had hearing loss due to, like my father-in-law, a bang from the tractor that he was driving. What's it called when the car's misfire? And so it was constantly doing that, and repeated exposure and not wearing earphones damaged his hearing. It is the loudness of the sound, though, that is usually affected by this type of hearing. So you can still hear, but it might be the loudness, which you can understand with your loss of hearing due to ear infections or the eardrum. And once that clears up, your sound does come back. Then we have the sensory neural hearing loss. And it's, again, can be caused by damage to or malformation of, but this time it's the inner ear, because that's where that neural pathway is to the brain. So it's usually to do with our cochlea, or it may be damage to the hair cells of the auditory nerve, So again, excessive noise exposure. There might be some causes like hereditary. It might be that it's a family history of hearing loss. It can be birth defects. So some babies are actually born without any hearing. And if you research some videos like Baby Hears a Sound for the First Time, and you can see where they've put a cochlear implant in and the baby then can hear their mum's voices for the first time, and the look of joy on their face when they see that. You should look it up. It's actually quite beautiful. And so it could be tumours, it could be due to medication that might affect hearing, aging, and so on. So there's a whole host of reasons that your hearing could be damaged. And so what's happening here is the sound's making it through okay to the middle ear, but the inner ear is preventing that kinetic energy, so energy due to movement, converting into an electrical impulse that's then sent via the auditory nerve up to the brain for interpretation. Now, what I'm going to do is show you a couple of videos throughout here. You can watch those, just so that you get some sort of understanding. These are the videos that are in your booklets as well, if you wanted to watch them on your own.